What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my build guide and unit review of Marni, an incredibly good free-to-play unit that we've got, and she's an axe armor with 205 BST, and she's no ordinary free-to-play unit. She has got an incredibly stacked weapon in Praise Pioneer Axe, so this has got the effective damage against the flying foes, and this is a reference to her having Hurricane Axe in one of the maps where you face her, so that's why she has got this, and this can definitely come in handy in some of the matchups. And then she has got +3 defense out of this weapon. Of course, minus some special cooldown would have been the ideal scenario, but this is also not the worst. And then she has got the Hexblade effect. So the adaptive damage does allow you to strike harder in some of the matchups, but against a lot of the meta units, it's not really going to be a big factor because they already have good mixed bulk. So it doesn't matter which defense stat you target. She also has the supportive effect built into this weapon, like a lot of modern free-to-play units. So at start of turn, if her HP is at or above 25%, then she's able to give herself and the allies in 2 spaces the +6 defense and resistance buff and the dull alt status. And this can be a really helpful effect in arena where people are going to be running the rally skills, and it can also be helpful in Aether Raids defense because you know that people are going to be having the visible buffs on their units when they face your team. So this is a really good support that she's able to give out to the allies in 2 spaces, and also takes advantage of this by herself. So she doesn't really have to run close defense 4 or distant defense 4, and it does open up her slot A options. And then for the combat itself, her weapon is always going to be active in the enemy phase, which is where she's going to be seeing most of the combat. Or if the foe is at or above 75% HP, then she's able to inflict penalty on foes' attack, defense, and resistance equal to 5 plus 15% of her visible defense. So this can easily go from 12 to 15 and even 16 in some of the scenarios because her visible defense is really high. She's got base 50 defense and she has the highest base defense unit in the game, and her defense is more than Gilliam, Valentine Myrrh, Valentine Ephraim, so that's quite insane. And she also has a super boon, and defense is the main IV you should be focusing on if you're going to be spending any kind of trade fruits on her. So this kind of penalty can be really solid with a lot of the other skills that she can try and run. And then she has got flat damage reduction based on 15% of her defense, which helps tremendously in tanking. And then she has got Miracle built into her weapon. So this is once per combat, and the best thing is that she has got healing in this weapon. So she can heal up 7 HP after the combat, which allows you to loop the Miracle. And this is a reference to her having Emblem Roy in one of the chapters where you face her, and she can be really annoying because of the holdout of Emblem Roy. So Marni is a really unique armor unit with Miracle built in her weapon. There's no other armor unit with Miracle in their weapon, and of course this is a non-special Miracle effect, which means that it is going to be susceptible against Fatal Smoke 4, but I would argue that Fatal Smoke 4 isn't really all that good anymore because of Breath of Life 4, and there are just so many better slots options. But the main threat is going to be coming from units like Hathrin and Fallen Julia, who can just inflict the null Miracle status, and if they make more units like that in the future, then it could spell trouble for Marni, especially for something like arena usage. But until then, this is going to be a fantastic thing that she has got, and it sets her apart compared to any kind of other safe tank because this gives her better survivability. And armor units have got some insane skills like Shield Fighter, for example, Weaving Fighter even, and her skills are also decent with Attack Defense Prime 3. Honestly, the Prime skills have fallen off, and the version 3 of the Prime skill doesn't really give you the distant counter. So I guess this could be a bridge fodder if you're trying to fodder off Winter Edelgard, but I would argue there are just so many better skills that you could run in this slot A, but it's nice to see some different skills on these rail units. And then she has got Wary Fighter, which is a decent skill at low investment. At least it is going to be helping her survive hits for something like limited hero battles. Now looking at her stat spread, it is nothing short of a premium unit because she has got really good mixed bulk, and she has got not 1, not 2, but 3 super boons. So if you're going to be using an Ascended Floret on her, you can easily ascend her resistance or attack. I would recommend resistance because ultimately she's trying to tank more. So if you go with defense and resistance IV as her main boons, then she's going to be able to survive a lot with the Miracle that she has got, and you also get to round out her bulk in a way So I don't really prefer having the attack super boon that much, honestly, and in most of the competitive game modes, bulk is gonna be mattering a lot. Now you can easily compare her to some of the previous Grail armors, and she's gonna be completely blowing them out of the water. Murdoch might have distant counter on his weapon, but it doesn't matter because nothing is going to be beating the tanking of Marni with her miracle and flat damage reduction. So it's really good, and she also gets a lot of debuffs in the combat. And then we have got Valentine Vigard, who doesn't even have a preferred weapon, so Arcane Thrima is pretty much something he'll have to depend on. So Marni is going to be much better combat-wise and arena scoring-wise, which shouldn't be a surprise. But what should be a surprise is her performing as good, if not better than many of the premium armors. Now green color is a bit annoying in the meta that we're in right now because there is Brave Felix as an insane melee nuke that you have to always consider, and there's also Emblem Ike as a really strong red unit, but Marni can be absurdly bulky even with them around, and you can clearly see that she's gonna be as bulky as some of the premium armors. Though it's worth keeping in mind that if you don't really have the fodder, then Brave Edelgard could be something you could watch out for in the future because she's going to be getting a revival in Hall of Forms, and she could get Shield Fighter easily in that Hall of Forms. And while Gilliam and Gatry are not axe armors, there's still a point of comparison because you can see that her stat spread is similar to that of a premium unit, and Gilliam unfortunately doesn't have the flat damage reduction, but Gatry does have it, and he's easily one of the best save units in the game as well. But Marni is going to be requiring a lot less resources in terms of Dragon Flowers, and she doesn't really need any kind of luck as she's going to be available in the Grail shop. Marni is a 205 BST unit, which means that she is going to be a staple among the free-to-play players and low spenders as their main arena option. Now usually armor units are really painful to run in arena because of their mobility, but I think that Marni is an exception when it comes to the free-to-play armor units, and I kinda regret giving my Plumeria and my Peony Soaring Guidance because Guidance 4 would have really helped with Marni, and she is gonna be the highest scoring free-to-play unit, so she's gonna be a tier above Panette when it comes to the arena scoring, and Marni in practice isn't really gonna be dying all that easily compared to the previous Grail armors that we've got, which just fold to any kind of modern unit. Maybe 6 months from now that might be the case for Marni, but still she has got the support element which the other Grail armors simply do not have. Overall, Marni is easily one of the best free-to-play units that we've got, and also one of the best save armors that we've got, because again, the miracle and flat damage reduction is really hard to beat, and I'm still kinda shocked that we are getting her as a free unit, and she does have the tanking potential even for cutthroat competitive game modes like Aether Raids and Summoner Duels, because Shield Fighter is quite absurd. So she can even be used in Summoner Duels where it's really hard to survive with your save tanks, but because of the bulk that she has got with Miracle, Shield Fighter, she just has a lot of factors going for her. And she does give out the dull ult status to her allies as well, so that is really helpful for arena where you're mostly going to be seeing the rally skills and you can just ignore any kind of visible buff. Now unfortunately, she doesn't really have a minus and special cooldown weapon, so it does limit her ceiling a bit, I would say, with Shield Fighter, because she's not going to be able to run Aegis or Pavis with it. And with a lot of builds, there are many times where you want to run Emblem Ike for his bulk and for the unpierceable damage reduction, but because she doesn't have a minus and special cooldown, many times you're just stuck in the corner running Emblem Marth. So that is definitely one of the big downfalls of Marni. And she is really good in arena, no doubt. She has got the combat, she has got the support, and she has got the armor mobility, which does make her pretty annoying to use in arena. And there is the support of Guidance 4 and Rain Snap that you could try and use. But if you don't have a flyer on your team, then again, it is going to be really troublesome with her 1 mobility. So that is something you will need to consider while using her in arena. Even if you're building up Marni on a budget, she's still going to be helping you a ton in the engage limited battles because your engage roster is likely not going to be that big, and you can run attack tactic as the budget skill on her because she already gives out the defense and resistance buff. So this could be a good way of using her for the support, and then she could just run distant counter melee as the sacred seal because the version 3 of the prime skill doesn't really give you that, so it can work out, and she can be bulky and not die because of her miracle. and the healing and the flat damage reduction. So even at an ultra budget, it is going to be helpful. And if you're going to be investing a bit more into her with the merges and divine codes fodder, then this is a build you can easily run if you grab Ascended Idun and Young Hector from the divine codes and you have a pretty decent near safe build. So Vengeful Fighter 4 is actually a pretty nice skill for her because she lacks the guaranteed follow-up attack in her weapon. So this gives that to her, and then she also has the Omni Breaker effect, and it also gives her the breath effect, so you're able to retaliate back with bonfires. And if you're going to be foddering off Young Hector, then you do get Armored Beacon, and you could always switch up to the far save depending on the situation, but she is a really good near save here nonetheless, and she could function in either role. So on budget, you could try and run Sturdy Stance, which is going to be giving you the guard effect, again an effect which she lacks, and a Squad A Sacred Seal is the best for her in the Sacred Seal to have a bit more of the bulk. And then if you have the fodder, then she's easily one of the better armors with reopening because she naturally doesn't have the guaranteed follow-up attack, which means that you can get that max 20% flat damage reduction and true damage based on your defense, and it's actually really good with the flat damage reduction that she already has in her weapon, so that could be stacked up. And because she can get the dull ult status, you don't really need to run close defense, and Stronghold becomes a pretty good option because not only it protects you against the panic and the debuffs to your defense and resistance, but it also helps you when you're going to be buffing up your defense and resistance with her weapon. So it's a really good option for maximizing her bulk, and it also helps you get more debuffs on the enemy because again, she is going to be working off her visible defense, and that with the defense super boon is going to be really high. Armored Blaze is of course the natural optimization that you could try and do on a near savior build, and Emblem Marth is going to be needed so that it can become a 2 cooldown special. And for the Sacred Seal, overall I think that Squad A's BX3 is the best seal because even though you're going to be near saving, having more resistance doesn't hurt you when there's unit like Brave Felix who has got the Hexblade effect. So more resistance can help, and more defense is always helpful with her weapon, and you also get more HP, so it's a really nice Sacred Seal. And if you have access to Shield Fighter, it is easily one of the most absurd skills in the game. It just allows her to tank so many things, and if you don't really have it, then Hardy Fighter could work in its place, but Shield Fighter gives you the protection against the brave hits and also the follow-up attacks, so it can be really helpful, especially against the null follow-up enemies. So because she doesn't have -1 special cooldown in her weapon, she absolutely needs Emblem Marth with Shield Fighter so that she could have a 1 cooldown execution, and then she can get the special jumping out of Shield Fighter. And this kind of build can be really annoying to face in Aether Raids defense because Shield Fighter allows her to function even on turn 1. So she could be a really good meta near save in Aether Raids defense despite being green and this kind of red heavy nuke metagame with Brave Felix and Emblem Ike. And armor units don't really have that many attuned skills that they could try and run. Guard Echo is one of the options, especially if you go with Stronghold as her slot A. So it does give you a bit more of the pierceable damage reduction and the guard effect, but I would argue that it's not really that big of a deal because the damage reduction it gives is negligible, and guard effect doesn't mean much nowadays because everyone and their mom has got the null guard effect. So I just wanted to showcase it as a max invest option, but you don't necessarily need it. And for Summoner Duels, she can also work out as a far savior, which cannot be said for a lot of armors because the bar for a far savior in Summoner Duels is quite high, but she's still able to contribute. And in Summoner Duels, Harsh Command Plus can be helpful against the stall status and the different kind of debuffs. So armor units don't really have much of an action economy, so at least you can, just get rid of those negative things. And you could easily run Fire Flood Boost 3 more for its bulk and less for its guard because like I said, guard doesn't really matter all that much, but the extra bulk and the extra HP from Fire Flood Boost is really nice, and she can easily function as a really good far savior, but of course near saving is a bit easier depending on who you ask. And for arena usage, you can easily make a Divine Codes build with again Young Hector giving you Armored Beacon, Vengeful Fighter 4 and far save. And you can run Bracing Stance 3 from the Winter Mirabilis combat manual that we got. So it's a decent slot A skill to be run, and Rally Attack Speed Plus is the best assist for her in arena because she already gives out the defense and resistance buff with her weapon. So this way you can fully buff up an ally with her rally You could also run it with Breath of Life 4, but more often than not, you could always run it on another unit and have her with the save skill. Breath of Life 4 healing is quite absurd with her Miracle, so it's a really good synergy effect that you could try and get. And even if you have the resources, Shield Fighter is simply not going to be working out for Arena because we don't really have a high scoring defensive special. So you would have to resort to Armored Blaze, Armored Beacon, and Armored Flow as your specials. So Weaving Fighter is pretty much going to be her best option for Arena, which weirdly works out in many of the scenarios because nowadays, because of the power creep and the effect creep that we have got in the weapons, a lot of modern units don't really come with null follow-up built into their weapon, which means that you could deny their follow-up attack with Weaving Fighter and be really bulky. And Brave Felix comes to mind. Despite being an incredible unit, he doesn't really have an inbuilt null follow-up, so you could take advantage of that with Weaving Fighter in Arena. And Earthfire Boost 3 could be run for its extra bulk and the defense that you could try and get. Unfortunately, if you're going to be using her as a near savior in Arena, then you're probably not going to be running her with distant counter melee Sacred Seal, which does mean that she doesn't reach her max scoring potential because distant counter is a 300 SP Sacred Seal. But still, this is something you could work out, and at least she's going to be scoring same as Panette. And assuming you've got some other unit who wants to run distant counter melee, this is definitely one of the options that you could try and run on Marni. But at absolute max investment, you're going to be making use of that Winter Pilot to get Fire Flood Boost 3 and Weaving Fighter, and you can also run her with the Far Save. Weaving Fighter's damage reduction is completely pierceable compared to Reopening and Shield Fighter, but it can be a pretty nice option because of its healing, which is going to be stacking with her weapon, and you're able to loop her Miracle, which can definitely have much better longevity than a lot of the other Grail armors. Marni is quite fun, and I cannot wait to see what they do with Grizz. Maybe they give him some kind of resonance effect built in his weapon. He could even have a Brave effect because of the tomes that he's able to use in the game, and maybe he's able to have insane warping like Emblem Celica. I want to thank all of my YouTube members for the constant support, and you can click the link on the screen right now to check out my breakdown of this month's weapon refines. And make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because I wish YouTube sub boxes also had Miracle built in just like Marni. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.